Welcome to episode 31, Greg.
Yeah, for those that are listening and not watching, Shaylyn is wearing like a Tiger King queen type blazer.
Excuse me?
Okay, I got some stuff for you.
He has used honor your father and mother to try to manipulate me into a relationship. What's your advice?
Well, an abusive father doesn't get to define what honor is.
That's right.
I think the reality is a lot of people are engaging with pornography.
That's a heavy topic. All right, Greg, welcome to episode I don't know what of the Dialogue
31,
podcast.
31.
Thank you.
31.
Off the dome. I love that. Welcome to episode 31, Greg.
All right, so at some point we're going to need grace. I don't imagine anybody's listened to all 31. I have not listened to all 31. I know you probably haven't listened to any of them.
Excuse me?
Have you listened to it?
I've listened to all of them.
Are you serious?
Because I made sure that if things needed to be edited out, that they did.
I'm very sorry for that assumption.
Yeah,
that's on
should
me.
be.
I take that back. I would say anyone that's listened to all 31, thank you. If you're out there, other than Shaylyn.
I think my mom has also listened to all 31.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you, Melissa. But we're going to need grace because it's like having 31 conversations. You can't remember everything you've already said.
Of course.
So if we start duplicating and saying like telling the same story, just love us like
I was going to say, that's literally exactly what I was going to say. Treat us like you would your grandpa and just, smile and nod. Keep it moving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So anyways,
Yes.
You were asking me before we started about my outfit choice today. You did.
Yeah, for those that are listening and not watching, Shaylyn is wearing a tiger, like a Tiger King queen type
a
blazer.
tiger print
A
blazer.
tiger,
It's
like
not
a Carol
like a
Baskin.
picture of the Tiger King. It's a tiger print, oversized, double-breasted blazer. And
So I'm trying to track this back to its origin story. Why did you purchase it, and then why did you grab it today? And that sounds attacking. I don't mean it that way. I'm curious, like what
listen,
was it that
I'm impervious
inspired?
because I am wearing a tiger print jacket today.
Yeah.
So see, that's the point right there. No, originally I saw it and I just thought, I'm such a neutral person. I don't have a lot of animal print. Period. Although I know some people call it a neutral.
Oh, by neutral you mean colors that you wear? And
Yeah,
things.
I don't tend to wear a ton of bright colors. I do some. Like I have, lime green dress. I have a few fun things here and there. But like in general, in my day-to-day dressing, I tend to do more neutral colors, not like really outlandish patterns. I'll do more with like the construction of an outfit that's kind of out of the norm. And I just thought, you know what? Like I have never owned a tiger print thing in my life. It just felt like a hole. I had a tiger print hole in my heart. And so
then you reached for it today because you didn't sleep much last night and you needed to go into that interview.
Yeah, so last night I was up until 2 a.m. of my own volition because I was hanging out with you. And I will say that is one of the great benefits of marrying somebody that you really enjoy spending time with is that 20 years later, it's still like,
You're like, dang, it's 1 a.m. What are we doing?
It's a Monday night. Like, let's have a slumber party and hang out. And so that's basically what we did. But then not of my own volition. I was up at 5:30 with the boys. So, it is what it is. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to take the tiger by the tail today. I'm not going to let it own me. And I'm going to wear the jacket and the black leather pants and, take the day.
Yep.
So there you go.
There it is.
That's the reason.
All right.
The dress for the day you want to have. You know what I mean?
That's right.
All right. You look adorable, by the way. I know I said that earlier, but
That's sweet.
Your skin is glowing. I don't know what you've been using, but I'm going to steal it.
Some of your moisturizers.
Joke's on me. All right.
No.
So for those who are not familiar and maybe didn't hear last week, we're going into a new format. Really love this new format. We're going to break it up into 10-minute segments. Try to stay to that as tightly as we can. If we need overtime for something, we can ask for it. Excuse me, but we are going to try to just take on a single question in each 10 minutes and tackle it to the ground.
And we have Brandon here producing for us. Brandon's got a mic as well, so he can do whatever he wants to do.
Can we have a round of applause for Brandon?
Watch this. Ready?
The crowd loves him.
Let's go. What if one of us says something that falls flat?
Why is that
Dude,
so universally enjoyable?
It feels like Christmas. We got a new toy, and we just want to play with it.
Yeah, no one should have given me this.
Yeah.
None of us, the three of us, should not have been interested.
All right. So
in
let
this.
me ask a question. Is we're doing this, and this is supposed to be like a 10-minute timer, which I think is going to actually be on the screen or something, or or you do it later?
I add it in post.
Gotcha. What's more important, to stay to 10 minutes or to answer the question holistically? So
Well, that's why you have overtime. If you
Okay.
need a little extra time to answer it holistically.
but you don't want to like triple overtime.
Yeah, come on. Just get concise,
But
bro.
no football fan's mad when it goes into overtime.
That's
If,
right.
if it's a good game, right?
Right.
Okay.
It's a barn
As
burner.
long as your team wins.
That's right.
So I will just say this, a lot of times these things come up. I'm glad to talk about them forever. If I'm getting long-winded, I would not take offense if you guys
We'll shut you down.
give me one of these wrap it up type things.
I can just
Pull
give
it
you,
in.
I can give you one of these.
I love it.
Oh, dude, this is great.
I'm so ready for this. All right,
Okay.
you ready to jump into the first one?
let's do
Let's
it.
do it. No further ado. All right, Greg, you want to read it out?
Sure. This says, I've been struggling with pornography. Do you have any advice?
Man, that's a heavy topic. I think obviously people within the church community would pretty universally say that they feel like pornography is wrong, that it's bad for you. It's interesting because even outside of that, in the scientific community, all of the findings that they've found recently about the ways that it rewires your brain and the pleasure centers in your brain and the ways that it can be harmful to you, I think we can say pretty universally, this is something that can truly become a full-blown addiction for a person, and anything that can be addictive shouldn't be played with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to take it seriously. And I think that for this in particular, the ways that it can affect you and the ways it can affect your relationships can have devastating consequences. So we don't have to sit here and debate, like, do you think it's bad or not? I think it's not good for you. So knowing that, I think one of the things that tends to make it worse for people is this guy clearly doesn't want to be. He says, I've been struggling with it. So he doesn't want to be watching it. He doesn't want it to be part of his life. So I don't think it's a far stretch to say he's probably also dealing with some shame around it if he wants to be free of this. And I have seen so many times how that becomes almost like a cycle. And I've heard you talk on this before in a really eloquent way. And so I would love to hear you kind of unpack how that can become like a self-fulfilling prophecy and really like a self-feeding, cycle, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a great question. I appreciate the spirit behind it. Like you said, this is somebody who recognizes this is not taking them where they want to go, and they're trying to figure out how to get some help and what to do about it. I think I got a lot of thoughts on it. One, I think the reality is a lot of people are engaging with pornography. I remember during COVID seeing like some statistics, especially during that time, where you had people who were extremely overwhelmed.
Stressed, isolated.
Absolutely. Like, some of them very lonely. And so there was a huge rise during that time, but it was already massive. I remember seeing like stats about, people spend more money on pornography than like how much we spend on national security, and then some. Like it's like a lot.
It's whole country's GDPs.
Yeah. So I think like, there are some people that would see it as harmless. That it's like it's a victimless, crime essentially, right? Like I'm doing something that's not hurting anyone. But I think that's not true. I think when you look at even like what Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount when he's talking about lust, and he's saying, look, it's not just so much whether you go and commit adultery or you do the deed, but if you're doing this and you're running this rep in your mind, it's negatively affecting you. It's building a groove in your brain, and ultimately what you're doing is you're debasing another person. That's what lust ultimately is, looking at someone just for their parts essentially, and not looking at their soul, not looking at who they are. So it's taking the humanity away from someone and being a taker, taking away from them for yourself. And so sex at its best brings intimacy, it brings unity. We're two people giving to one another. And so this now again becomes something where you start to get comfortable debasing. And this is why you'd see often people that end up maybe doing things, outside of sex all the way, or pornography all the way even to like murder, right, to take someone's life, a lot of times you'll see, man, they had an issue with pornography. Not that every person that
No,
looks
of
at
course
pornography
not.
is
No,
going to
no, you're
do all
not
of
drawing
that.
an equal line.
No, but I'm just saying, like, you start to get in the habit of taking away someone's humanity and debasing them in your mind. Now that can be a slippery slope into a lot of things. So whoever sent this in, I think has acknowledged that as like, look, I don't want to do that. And you know, like you said, even psychologists and counselors have seen, you know, young men struggling with impotence and depression and again, it's not just men, women that are struggling with impotence and depression and struggling to actually bond and have an emotionally intimate relationship because, you know, this has been something that went from a temptation to an addiction. And anything that's addicting, you got to be really careful with. You just don't mess with it. You don't act. Not even that. You know. Again, we're not saying you have to be sexually like have no sex, right? Or
Right.
we're not saying that. You know, again, anything that's potentially addicting doesn't mean you know
That
abstinence.
it's inherently bad.
Yeah, like
but you mess.
But
yeah.
you got to be really careful, really careful with these things. Otherwise, you know, they can take your freedom away from you. So it seems like this guy has acknowledged that. I would say, man, the first thing you want to do is really bringing this to the Lord and finding grace, like really starting from a place of grace. Because I think if you allow shame to overtake you, it ends up creating more pressure that then you feel like you need relief from, which will make pornography that much more appealing.
Correct.
And that much more of a temptation because, again, an orgasm creates this really acute release of brain chemicals, right? So what brain chemicals, like during sex, right, are released? It's the brain chemicals that bond you to another person, the brain chemicals that give you, you know, adrenaline, ultimately give you passion and excitement, and then the brain chemicals that give you peace, help you to relax. Okay, so you know, often somebody who is wanting that sort of experience, in some way they have pressure they're trying to release, they have peace, they're trying to find some peace, or trying to find some
Stress
joy,
relief.
stress relief, or even fulfillment and passion. And so they're trying to find something to get excited about. And so it's kind of this cheap way of doing it. And unfortunately, if you're not wise to that, you can end up being extremely counterproductive. You blow out this appetite, and now, you know, the things that used to get you excited or give you peace don't do it anymore. And so it just gets deeper and darker.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, oh man, you know, you wake up in a nightmare. So, you know, I think you start with this, man, whoever this person is, and I don't know if it's a male or female, but whoever this is, I think you want to start with the fact that probably the thing that you're trying to get from pornography, if you track it backwards, it might not be bad. Like, you might be looking for peace. You might be looking for fulfillment. You might be looking for connection. You might be looking for significance. Okay? I want to feel strong. I want to feel important. I want to feel wanted. I want to feel powerful. Okay, these aren't necessarily bad things. Like, it's not bad to want to feel fulfilled. It's not bad to want to feel peace or even to feel pleasure.
I was going to say, it's not even bad to want to feel pleasure or feel excitement. People, I
Exactly.
think, especially within the church community, tend to demonize that, and that's not a bad thing.
When I've had people who I've sat with who bring me their real stories, okay, and they're going, man, I got into a bad spot. Man, I am stuck in this addiction. If I start tracking back to the origin, it's almost always there was a reasonable appetite that they had. There was a reasonable desire. It wasn't a perverted desire. It wasn't an evil desire. It was a normal human desire that they had, that then they went for the cheap version. They essentially went, I can get this. This is immediate gratification. This
Quick fix.
gives me a quick fix and an intense fix. And so they went for that, not really maybe understanding or thinking out, or they're taking a risk that they shouldn't have taken that led them to a place where now they're like, I am out of control. But where you got to kind of walk it back and go, look, like, you can, when you get to that place where it starts to get really deep and dark, you see who you're becoming, and often you start wallowing in shame because you're like, I'm disgusting. You feel like God thinks you're disgusting. You see yourself as disgusting. Maybe you got caught. Maybe your wife caught you, your husband caught you or something, and now they're upset with you, or you broke their heart. And so or maybe even they went after you. You hurt them and they hurt you, and they're telling you how disgusting you are. So my point is, it can then start with that shame that then builds up the pressure that then now the temptation is even greater. So to start with, like, look, it was probably a reasonable appetite, a reasonable desire that caused this thing to be a temptation for you.
You're not inherently disgusting. I think that's what people need to hear. Like, please be released from that.
It's a good starting point, right? And it doesn't mean you just snap your fingers and it's all good. You probably still need to get help. You're probably still going to need to put up tremendous boundaries. What I appreciate about this person is they're not in denial, because I think a lot of people would be in denial. Hey, it's not that big a deal. It's not that big a deal. And yet, no, this person's like, it is a big deal. And so I'm going to need to get help. And so I think I see it more and more normal that people are starting to go, hey, I'm struggling with this. I need help. And I think it used to be this thing that was so embarrassing. And I'm not saying people aren't still embarrassed, but I think you look at, if the math is true around the bazillions of dollars that's going into this and how much traffic is going this way, we know that a lot of people are struggling with it. And it takes a lot of courage to come and ask for help. So I think, like, there's a lot of hope, but I think it starts with not giving into the shame of going, I'm disgusting because I did this. Well, there were reasonable things. It's okay to want peace. It's okay to want fulfillment. It's okay to want significance. It's okay to want connection. And it's okay to want passion. Yeah. And those things aren't bad. Now, you made some bad choices. You did some things, and you went down a road that ultimately, you thought was going to bring you those things, but brought you bondage. Okay, that's where we are right now. Now let's take our reality and let's start working our way out. So you might need to get support, put up boundaries, make some serious changes. And what's amazing, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, because I think I'm probably in overtime at this point. What is amazing is, scientifically, fact check me on this, study on this, it is all reversible in terms of even the damages done to your brain. I've seen several studies where they talk about somebody who maybe has been in the bondage of pornography. Once they get out and detox and they step away, their brain starts to rewire itself, starts to restore and rejuvenate itself.
Your chemical balances come back.
Stuff comes back.
Yeah.
And so it's not hopeless. Like, you may have had a lot of starts and stops and failed attempts to get yourself out of the quicksand, but it is not hopeless if you take the steps.
And I'm sure we are probably at time. Is that right? I'm going to just do a quick little bonus round on that, because I think there's something else really important that we can miss. Excuse me. And that is when you mentioned, you probably will need to get help. You will probably need to, you may need to go to therapy and work through some things. Can I just say how important that is, period, and something that I see within the church that is potentially even a bigger problem, is the way that the church culture has actually kind of, for lack of a better word, pornified marriage. They have told guys, hey, just keep it in your pants, keep it, don't look at things, whatever, until you get married, and then it's just whatever. Then you can just go whatever your wildest things are. Now listen, I'm not saying when you're married, everything has to be vanilla. It can be whatever you want it to be. But my point is, it's whatever the two of you want it to be. And I think that...
Yeah, marriage is not a license to debase your wife now.
And that's my point. When I talk about pornifying marriage, I talk about we have still taught the mindset around porn. But we've just put boundaries on it. That's not healthy either. Your wife is not just your release. Right. And now she's your quick fix. Instead of looking at someone on a screen, you're debasing and dehumanizing her instead of looking for genuine connection there. And I'm not saying every interaction you have to have, you have is like this deep, just look in each other's eyes. Everything's so, sacred and whatever. It's like, no, fun is intended. Yeah. Excitement is intended. Like, it's cool for it to be like that. But it has to be things you both enjoy. And it's not just, well, this is what I want, and I'm going to treat you like crap if you're not giving me what I want when I want. Because again, now you're back to, you're just looking for a quick fix, and you're not addressing the real problem. If you're finding yourself in a place where, you need this like constant, sexual interaction without any kind of an emotional interaction with your spouse, and you're just using that to like get your stress relief and move on. And where have you left them? Where are they emotionally after the interaction? If they're not in a better place as well, okay, there's probably something deeper that you still should be going and addressing. So that's my little bonus take on that.
Yeah,
I would encourage people to look at that.
I think it's an important conversation. So
It is.
I don't mind going a little bit over time.
Yeah.
I think like when you look at what Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, what we call the Torah sampler, he takes a few different things from the Torah and takes them deeper. But
Correct.
what he's doing is he's not singling out 4 things. He's teaching us how to think about everything.
Correct.
And so, but one of the things he does is he talks about adultery, and then he talks about lust. So he's like, it's not, again, I mentioned it earlier, it's not just that you do the deed or don't do the deed, it's what's happening in your heart.
Yeah.
So if you follow that train of logic and what Jesus is saying there, he's going, what's happening at your heart level is extremely important. Even if your body is obeying the law, if your heart is not,
Yes.
or your mind is not, then you're committing a sin.
Yes,
essentially.
that's the core of
So
it.
that means if you think about that, if in a marriage, somebody is debasing the other person just because we went to and legally are married and we both have rings now. Okay. Of course, like within a marriage, you guys can do whatever you want to do, in your bedroom, right? We're not here to,
That's your business.
throw a flag, but at the heart level, it is totally possible for someone to debase even someone
And
they've committed to
yes.
and who is committed to them, and to use them in a way where they're taking away their humanity.
That's right.
Okay. And again, we're not trying to get legalistic and say, like you said, every sexual encounter even in your marriage has to, be this deep soul tie, like you said. But at the end of the day, like if that's what you're doing, you could actually be sinning against your own spouse.
That's right.
So it really is to pay close attention to the heart level, not in a legalistic way, not in a shame way, in a wisdom way.
That's right.
I want to look and go, what is happening to my heart? How am I looking at my wife? Am I just angry because she's not feeding me what I want, feeding my need, right? She might be feeding you. You might be trying to get her to feed your lust.
That's right.
Right? And that's actually corrupting your heart. At some point, if that's what is causing you guys to be irritated with one another, and that's what you're angry about, that is causing you to taste the contents of your own heart.
Yeah.
Take that as a caution. Step back, right? Repent of that. Have a deeper thought, a deeper prayer, and a deeper conversation that ultimately, right, can save you from cascading.
Yes. So good. All right. We can move on. Thanks for
Can
giving
I
us.
ask a quick question about it?
Yeah.
Sure.
So if someone is struggling with it, what your advice is, talk to your wife or husband, or talk to a friend first and then go to them? Like what would be like the quick action step for someone? Let's assume they're married.
Who's bound in pornography?
Right.
Yeah, I would say,
I wouldn't advise go talk to a friend unless your friend is in any way an expert in that space. I would say talk to someone who's an expert in that, a therapist, or, there are a lot of like recovery groups for those kinds of things. Like I would find someone that's actually, is skilled in that space.
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated. Like, so some people, it's like, hey, my spouse and I just got in a big fight because I was caught. They caught me or whatever. So some of them, their spouse knows, some of them, their spouse may not know. So I think there's a lot to that in terms of how you have those conversations and how you reestablish trust and how you get help. But I think the key is get help. I mean, like we have a group called 180, right, which is really targeted at guys who are trying to find freedom from sexual sin. And so there's community around it. They have like certain resources where it's like literally an on-call person. So if you're about to do something that you don't want to do, but you're feeling really weak, you can dial them up right now.
Yeah.
So there's like 180 groups, I believe, all over the country. I know they're in this
so
area.
many resources.
Yeah, but there are a lot of resources. I would say you whether it's going to a licensed therapist or getting into a group or getting in somewhere where you're going to have accountability is very key. Like if you don't set up boundaries and have accountability, then a lot of times that's the denial people live in, is like, oh no, I can do it. Whatever it is, right? Whether it's a substance or anything you're bound in, they just go, oh no, I'm good. And that's why in the 12-step programs, like step 1 is like, dude, I got a problem. Like you have to admit it. You have to start by admitting it. And then you got to set up a lot of boundaries. So, I mean, I think 12-step programs, are great. Celebrate recovery. A lot of these 12-step programs are extremely effective.
Yeah.
But you got to take it that seriously.
That's right.
So I would say go to a pro. I mean, because again, you go to the wrong friend, they're like, dude, what's the big deal, bro?
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter.
Well, if she wasn't being so difficult, you wouldn't have. Yeah.
You're a guy, dude. Every guy does it. Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks a lot, bro.
not the right friend.
Yeah, wrong
So yeah,
person.
unless that friend is someone who's an expert in that space in some way, I wouldn't just say go to a friend. I would say, and also the nice thing about a lot of those groups, it's beyond accountability, because I think some people hear accountability and they do feel shame still. They feel like I need somebody like watching over my shoulder. That's not what you're saying. You mean it really in the sense of support. If I'm in my moment where I'm feeling weak, I have someone to call.
That's right.
Because again, the leading with grace piece, I think, is so important that you brought up. Like, that's going to help you not create this pressure cooker of like, oh no, I'm going to fall and mess up, and then everybody's going to be so mad. You know, it's like you got to get
support, and you have to think of it as managing an appetite.
Correct.
You're managing an appetite. Like
The
I
appetite's
dude,
not gonna go away.
I've had men come to me. They're like, Pastor, I'm just really angry with God because I've been praying about this and I'm still tempted. And I'm like, my man, your sexual appetite is a gift from God.
It's normal. It's so normal. It's part of who you are as a human being.
Handled correctly, it's amazing intimacy.
Yeah, we're not
and
asking
connection
to
and
take
acceptance.
appetites away.
So we're not praying that God would deliver us from our sexual appetite. Some of it's going to be bringing discipline around this appetite so that it can be all that it's supposed to be.
Right.
So I think you got to frame it that way and go, so how do I, if I'm way out of bounds at this point, how do I bring this thing back into its boundary?
Yeah.
We'll attach some of those resources in the show notes if anyone's interested.
That's great.
Great.
All right, next up. My parents split when I was 2, and my father was largely absent for the majority of my life. When I was younger, I watched him physically abuse my stepmom. He has used honor your father and mother to try to manipulate me into a relationship, but I've tried to set the boundary. What's your advice? That is such a heavy one. And unfortunately, you do see that type of thing. If someone is comfortable being abusive in one form, they're often comfortable being abusive in more than one form. So it sounds like there's definitely some emotional abuse going on there as well. I would say, I want to open it up for you first. Go ahead, Don.
If you have thoughts, you can go ahead. I mean, I can always go, but I'm glad to hear from you.
I think, honestly, one of the most, first of all, you don't ever have to give honor to dishonorable behavior. So there's nothing honorable about physically abusing someone. So you don't owe honor there. Now, you can still give someone honor as a human being, right? But he didn't honor his role as a father and as a husband, and so there isn't something there, like a standard to be upheld.
Well, an abusive father doesn't get to define what honor is.
That's right.
So like if he's saying honor me by doing X, Y, and Z.
That's right.
Okay, that he doesn't have that right.
Yeah, that's not honorable. That's manipulative, and it's not right.
Yeah, he may not be the person equipped to define what honor is.
Yes, and
so you might have to define that for yourself.
yes, and so that's actually what I was going to say. Is I think sometimes the most honorable thing that you can do is to not repeat cycles. That is the most honorable and beautiful thing you can do, is choose to, let things end with you and start a new life.
That's really good. I would say my heart goes out to this person. I hope they're listening. I'm sorry for what you've walked through, and I hope that you can find in your heart hope and trust in God, and to lean into the body of Christ and to persevere in your healing, because it will happen. It will happen if you'll walk it out. I think this is a version of many stories I've seen where someone introduces chaos into a family, introduce dysfunction, and then nobody asked for it, but now everybody's being asked to deal with it.
That's right.
And to try to sort it out. And that's where this is a young man. Probably they didn't say, did they? I don't want to assume that.
No.
They're being asked to try to sort this out and figure this out. And so I think what's really difficult, and you have to kind of embrace the tension, is that even when you make the right decision in these type of situations, it still doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
because you've got this person who has introduced dysfunction and unhealth, and so they're going to make it's like sickness. It's like when you're sorry for the this is a little crude, but like
Sure.
when you have a virus and you're puking, okay, it feels awful, but you're getting this thing out of your system.
Right.
So it's a sickness, right? It's a virus. So, this person is introduced abuse, manipulation. And so when you put up a boundary or you define honor for yourself, that person is not going to go, wow, great job, son. Great job, daughter. They're actually going to be threatened by your health.
Right. That's a great way to say it.
And then they'll let the fury rain down.
Yeah.
So they're going to probably try to make your life miserable. What you have to do is have the presence of mind, the strength of character, and the support, find some support to be able to define in your own mind and heart what honor is and what's the right thing to do, and then do that regardless of how they respond and react. So you have to be clear in your own head, because they may try to carpet bomb you. They may try to manipulate you and confuse you. So you got to be clear in your own head and not allow that confusion to divert you into some other path, right?
Yeah.
So I think what you said is really good. Ultimately, we talked about it Sunday around, when Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead. And he said, come follow me, right? And he's talking about to a guy who ultimately it's time for him to move beyond even, his father who had passed away. And it's not dishonoring. He's not encouraging him to dishonor his father. He's saying ultimately, you're going to have to be your own man. You're going to have to make your own decisions, be your own person. And in so doing, you may do things that the bones don't like,
Right.
that the bones would have never done.
Yep.
And when you look at that text, Jesus is actually about to take him to the Decapolis. He's about to take him across the Sea of Galilee to a place probably his father would have never gone. And so he's going like, ultimately, you can go back to those bones or you can move forward. Now, if the bones aren't actual bones, it's a human being, but they represent something you need to leave behind.
Right.
Often those bones will try to taunt you. Those bones will try to manipulate you. Those bones will try to confuse you. And you have to have the presence of mind to go, no, I'm going this way now.
Yeah.
So I think you said it well. I think you go, I honor you by not following your example.
Right.
I honor you by learning from you and then following Jesus.
Right.
I can honor you by learning from you, even if it was a bad example,
Yes.
and then following Jesus. Now, they may cry and scream and point fingers and get angry and shake their fist and say, you dishonorable blank, blankety blank. And you go, I understand you see it that way.
Right.
And I understand you trying to confuse me. I'm clear, though, in my head. I understand what it means to honor you, and you don't get to determine and define what is honorable. I'm gonna have to do that for myself. And every person, ultimately, in becoming your own person, you have to make those decisions. So my encouragement would be step back, get some good counsel, take some time to pray, decompress emotionally, and get clear in your head what it means to honor father and mother, and then live that way.
That's so good. That's it right there. Okay, so last segment is actually a continuation of last week. Somebody had the question, what are some resources for someone who's trying to understand the Bible better?
Yes.
And you have even more last week's. I hope everybody, if you didn't listen to last week's episode, go back and at least listen to that last segment, because Greg had some incredible resources that have been just amazing for us as well. And so these are great as well.
I got some stuff for you. Couple things. So right now we're in a series called There's More to the Story, right? So you come across a text. I'm going to use actually what I just mentioned a second ago. We were in Matthew 10. So this resource, let me show it to you real quick. This is a, I'm going to put it right there.
This is taking me back to like my PBS, encyclopedia
Reading
sets.
Reading Rainbow. Okay, so this is a cultural background study Bible, right? So there's all kinds of study Bibles out there. This is a cultural background. So, for example, when I was talking on Sunday about the the man who is, the story of let the dead bury the dead. Jesus says to this guy in Matthew 8. So I mentioned, hey, here were the burial rituals at that time among the Jewish people. Okay, so it's like, well, Greg, where'd you learn that? Okay, how do you know about Jewish burial rituals? There was an initial burial ritual when someone would first die, and then they would put spices on the body to cause the body to decompose, and then after that decomposition, a year later, there would be essentially on the anniversary of their death, they would come back and take those bones, put them in an ossuary or a box, and then they would bury that in the tomb long term. So more than likely, okay, this guy's either asking for a year delay in his following of Jesus, or his father died a year ago and he's going to this thing. So again, understanding that context starts to frame up this conversation a little bit. Where did I get that? All right, some of that study came straight out of this cultural study Bible. So go ahead and bring that thing up on the screen. So in Matthew 8, okay, in the margins here, okay, and actually I was working with my study partner. I was sending this screenshot to him, and actually I sent it to you as well, because Shaylyn, you and I had talked about this. Mm-hmm. Did you read that text? Do you remember when I said it? I
sent this? Yeah.
Okay. You did read it?
Of course I read it.
Okay. I don't
Excuse me, sir?
I don't know. I'm just checking. Okay, so you see right there, it talks about the initial burial took place shortly after the person deceased. However, family members would not be outside talking with rabbis during the reclusive mourning. So again, this is starting to give context as it probably wasn't right after his dad died in the initial burial, because again, in their culture, there was a period of mourning where you wouldn't just be out hanging out with a rabbi talking. So the chances are that starts to lead you to, hey, this probably wasn't like his dad died yesterday or the day before. His dad died a year ago. So that's starting to it's understand the culture helps you sort of understand the storyline better. And some would argue that there's a view here of the second burial. So a year after the first burial, after the flesh had rotted off the bones, the son would return to rebury the bones in a special box, an ossuary, in a slot in the tomb's wall. Again, so this is just one example where when you're reading a Bible story and you're like, I don't get that. It feels like, we said Sunday, like reading your Bible is a cross-cultural experience. You're like, I don't get this culturally. I found this Bible, this study Bible, extremely helpful. All right, two more. These are hard copies, but these are Bible commentaries, okay, by an absolutely brilliant author. The New Testament version is by Craig Keener. Okay, so this is the IVP Bible Background Commentary. So you see this book, you see the thickness of this book. This is a commentary on the New Testament. So every verse you would read in the New Testament, okay, in this book, it would have several paragraphs on each verse.
Giving you context, giving you cultural understanding. Right. Yeah.
Yep. So this, by the way, last week I gave you one that's free online. It was the Enduring Word. Mm-hmm. So again, you can get that. That's digital. This one also I have found extremely helpful. So a lot of times, again, you're going to probably want to look at more than one perspective on a text.
Right.
Just like if you're having a roundtable conversation and you talk about one thing, 3 different people talk, you're going to get a little bit.
That's right. Everyone's contributing something unique.
So I can definitely vouch for this one. I use this one just about every single week when I'm studying. I always want to know what Craig Keener has to say. Very brilliant author. And then again, part of the same IVP Bible Background Commentary. This one is on the Old Testament as well. So again, these are 3. They're affordable. I can't remember exactly how much I paid for them, but
it might say inside the front flap sometimes, or back. Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
But if it cost a ton, I probably would have remembered that. But these are
$34 on Amazon.
There you go. Yeah.
Let's go.
Look at
That's very affordable. And again, I paid hundreds for, like, again, a lot of commentaries. The New Testament, it's like 15 volumes, right? So again, it's a little more condensed, a little more synthesized, but it's a great resource to have next to your Bible while you're reading through it. All right?
Yep. Those are great.
Why don't you put the link into the show notes? And just to be clear, I don't have some sort of deal with these guys.
Yeah. This is just genuinely.
I get no kickbacks.
Yeah, this is just genuinely what's helpful for us. And I love when you do send me stuff like this. You and I get to go back and forth, find different historical resources on things, because it does just give you so much more of a deep understanding when you, I think a good one that somebody had said one time was like, 1,000 years from now, somebody won't know the difference between a butt dial and a booty call. Right. And I think that's kind of funny because it's like, it really is very different. They are very different. But if you didn't have the context of our society right now, you would have no idea that those are two very different things. Yeah. And so I think we can sometimes become almost a little arrogant when it comes to reading these, thousands of years old pieces of text when you don't understand their difference between those things, that was contextual to their day. You can seriously misinterpret something and pull something from it that you were never intended to take.
That's right.
So, yeah, those are great resources.
Sounds good.
Any final thoughts?
Just thanks for taking time to hang out.
Yeah,
if anyone has questions, you can send them in dialogue at ONE.CHURCH.
Yeah, see, that's why Brandon's around.
Oh, you made an email.
Yeah, I check it multiple times a day, every single day.
That's awesome.
I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, I think that's a lie, but thank you. Thank you for ending this podcast with a lie. That's always a great way to end.
It may just be a half truth. He checks it, just not.
He was being sarcastic. Is his sense of humor. His
hold
dad,
on.
His dad, by the way, his dad's an aspiring stand-up comedian right now.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's what he says.
He's going to like comedy clubs and just.
I'm so here for that.
Taking a shot.
By the way,
shooting a shot.
That is, all jokes aside, no pun intended as well. That was just so deep.
Bro, you missed it.
Oh shoot,
you missed it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there you go.
But truly, I love when I see people that just decide to take on and try new things that are like completely just out of the box. It's like, yeah, you know what? I'm a grandpa now. Like, I also want to be a stand-up comedian.
That's right.
Do it, man.
That's right, man.
I'm here for it.
That's right.
That is my
what's the worst that can happen? All right. See you next time.
Bye.